Welcome back to Kaulig Nation, your one-stop shop for all things Kaulig Racing, Dinger Nation, SVG Nation, and all things NASCAR, including NASCAR 25. I'll try to find some time to talk about that tonight. We are here with Ramin is Racing, episode 7. We have a loaded show for each and every one of you tonight. We're talking the big changes at Kaulig Racing. Obviously, Justin Haley and Daniel Dye named to the Ram trucks, which we will get to shortly. What does that mean for the fourth and fifth trucks? What's going on with Ty Dillon? What's going on with Christian Eckes? On the Ty Dillon front, I'm just going to let everyone know off the bat. Ryan and I know some stuff, but we can't talk about it. So, and I don't even know if I'd say we know some stuff about Ty Dillon. I'd say we know some stuff about the 10 car. And that situation seems to be in flux, and we'll get to that. SVG, we can't do this show and not talk about SVG's late season push, because I think there's a difference between running respectable or, doing decent on ovals. But what he's shown over the last few weeks, wow. And then championship predictions. I mean, we got 3 series all racing for championships. I wish they were racing at a track that wasn't a complete albatross, but that's another story for another show. And last but not least, our content. Things have been super busy, like just insane busy. To provide a little bit of transparency to this. My wife went back to work, and that meant Dad is with the kids a lot more. Plus, I have another job and various other things. And Ryan travels for work and has things going on, and it's just been really hard to do anything. But I can tell you this: even though the season comes to an end this Sunday, there will be significant NASCAR news for the next couple of weeks. That's just the way things work, probably the next few weeks. And given 2 different interviews today on the Kaulig front, Kaulig's probably going to be front and center in NASCAR entertainment here over the next couple of months, the way it's sounding. And don't be surprised if said TV show takes place at South Boston Speedway, from what I gather. But we'll dive into that as we go here. Ryan, what's going on, man? It's been a while. Oh, sorry. Before I didn't finish my point there. Content will continue in the off season, unlike previous off seasons where we kind of disappear for a bit. We're hoping to be able to put it out at least 1 video a week, ideally 2, and also do a show of some sort. Patreon content will continue. As I announced in our pre-produced video that went out today, planning a 3-part video series pertaining to the detailed stats regarding SVG's season, so you can track how he was at Daytona all the way through Phoenix this weekend. I need to put together the numbers for that, but it's going to be split into 3 different videos. So you have that too. And then on the NASCAR 25 front, hopefully we can get Ryan over to that side of the force eventually. But I'll be posting some videos here soon and giving some thoughts on it. But dude, now that I've rambled for 5 minutes, over to you. How's it going?
Hey, man, it's going good. I'm glad to be back with you. It's, I know we've been trying to get together the last couple of weeks and schedules just haven't allowed it. I know we've been saying that a lot, but it's unfortunately part of the package here with us. I know, work's always busy for me, and I know you've been busy with your job and having to travel with your wife getting back to work. So, but I'm happy to get back in it. I know the season's winding down, and I felt like some of that momentum had kind of been slowing since the big announcement with Ram. But I tell you what, man, the last, I would say 2.5 weeks has been just an overflow of information, an overflow of big news items coming out, not just Kaulig, but NASCAR as a whole. So I'm looking forward to kind of diving into all of these topics and kind of figuring out, kind of just where we're going to progress. Because as you said, this is going to be a busy off season. Not every off season is going to be loaded with drama, but I think between the NASCAR lawsuit that's seemingly maybe coming to a conclusion, this NASCAR show with Ram, a lot of unanswered questions going into next season with some seats and drivers. Like, I'm excited to talk about about the winter, the silly season that seems to be running later than it has in years past. So definitely good for us to give us something to talk about, and I'm definitely happy to dig into it tonight.
So I'm going to throw a bomb out there for SVG fans to start, and it's going to be a bomb for them, a potential bomb. I don't want to say it's a given because that would be misleading, and I have not received information that it's for sure. But I can tell you, I had someone reach out to me because they know we do a lot of SVG content. Um, and we're friends on Facebook. I don't want to say who this person is, but um, they said, look, I can tell you 100% that SVG and Trackhouse are talking about changing from the number 88 to the number 97. So I know there's a lot of fans that really wanted SVG to be in the 97 in the Cup Series. Um, to my understanding, he ran the 88 before too, though, in his career. Could be wrong on that. If anyone knows, please comment down in the chat and share your thoughts and or opinions or facts there. And if you're live watching right now, we know a few of you are. Please, click the like button, leave a message. We'd appreciate your thoughts. But yeah, no, apparently that talk's going on, and this one is a little interesting. Is there might be a number change for Connor Zilich's vehicle as well. So I don't know if that's going to come to pass because it seems like it was a surprise to me. And I'm starting off with this because it's kind of like just an opener topic. For me, there's not a lot of importance to it, but I know our SVG fans have some. But the way Trackhouse has marketed the 188.99, I'd kind of be genuinely surprised if that happened. Um, Not just one number change, but both. That would be really surprising. But I know there's a lot of SVG fans that want to see the 97. And if anything, hey, you're going to sell more diecast next year by just having, even if it's the same paint schemes, a different number on there. So, maybe from that perspective, there's some enticement on it. And then also, I don't know if Trackhouse knew how it was going to go for SVG this year. He won with Kaulig, obviously, in the Xfinity Series, challenged for some road course wins with Kaulig, but didn't actually get any. And then had the year he had this year. I mean, 5 out of 6 road course wins. I think it's safe to say he's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. So now that they know that, I wonder if they're more open to, doing a number change. Could be wrong, but I believe RFK technically has the rights to the 97 car or 97 number in Cup, so there'd have to be some sort of something happen there. But that wasn't even on our show agenda tonight. But thoughts, Ryan? I know it's not like a great level of importance, but hey, if SVG fans really want the 97, I don't blame them.
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on where I was going to go with this. Like, when he came over to the team, he was on a 1-year deal. Like, of course, everybody was excited about his road course prowess, but I don't think anybody fully knew what to expect. And obviously, he went out this year, won 5 out of 6, dominated. He's clearly the best in the business. It's earned him, I think, a little bit of a leeway in his standing with the organization, and where he stood this time last year versus where he is today. I think his importance within that team is significantly higher, and that number obviously means a lot to him. And I think that's something pretty easy they could do to allow him to just establish his own identity and brand in the way that he's done so throughout his career. So I think it makes sense for them to do it. And even if they keep the 88, I also saw that rumor about possibly Connor Zilich getting his number 67, which is owned by 2311. Not sure if that's true or not, but that's what I saw floating around today. But for him to get the 97, I mean, you could still go 188, 97 and still kind of have some synchrony. So I don't think it would be that big of a deal for them to do that. And to your point, they can sell more merchandise. That's not just diecast. That's hats. That's shirts. That's memorabilia. That's a lot of new stuff that people that we know our fans would go out and purchase. So there's definitely some benefits to it. And truthfully, I don't think they'd have a super hard time getting the 97. Yes, that was a Roush Fenway number years past. But NASCAR has a use it or lose it policy. And if you're not using that number actively, it can be distributed to another team if they request it. So while I'm sure they would do the courteous thing and talk to RFK about it, I don't think there would be any resistance to them getting that number. So I actually feel there's a strong chance that could definitely happen next year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The Heim number one, which could potentially see Zillish run it. I don't know how I feel about that one. And I've only heard or seen that at one place, where the 97 thing I've seen at one place, and then also had someone else tell me about it who doesn't think very much of the people that put out the 67 thing, which I get. Like, it's a parody account. We know the one that we're talking about. It's Daily Downforce, and we we've had some contact with them, and the truth is they've gotten some stuff right. I believe credit is due where it's deserved, and I think when you're running an account that's a parody account but also trying to break news, it's hard for people to take you seriously. And I just want to give credit where it's due. If you've watched them over the last couple of months, they've gotten a few things right, and they deserve credit for it.
They've been more right than wrong in recent months. So definitely
For,
shout out to them, whoever is running that account,
for
for
sure.
getting on the ball.
And you know what? Like, again, I know we're not like a big media place, and I'm not trying to toot our own horn, and I'm also trying not to sound too bitter, but like, everyone's now coming out after yesterday with the Kaulig's done in Xfinity, Kaulig's done in Xfinity. And to the few of you that credited the first place with having this publicly, thank you. That was us, by the way, not anyone else out there. And thank you to our source, who continues to be way more right than wrong. Although I will say he was quite surprised with the Justin Haley one. So
I think we all were, to be honest. Like, sure, that I think we all had like, yeah, it'd be cool for Justin to come back, but I don't think any of us really expected it. So that was a big surprise for sure. And I mean, I know we're going to touch on this at the expense of who, right? Somebody I think lost out because of it. So I don't know who that is, but I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit more.
yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into it now. The news of the day is Kaulig Racing has tapped Justin Haley and Daniel Dye as officially the second and third Ram truck drivers for 2026. Daniel Dye was a given. Like, let's be honest, a lot of people really believe that Daniel Dye's father really played a big role in this thing happening. So it would make sense that he would get it. And although I've not been overly impressed with Daniel Dye's season this year, I thought he was impressive last year. I think he's gotten involved in a lot of wrecks that weren't his doing this year. He just hasn't been able to avoid them. Um, Dude is a playoff truck driver, right? So, like, um, he's not nothing when it comes to that series. So that's a big one. And then Ty Norris was on Sirius XM this afternoon, where he said that Justin Haley is going to be, the veteran driver with Kaulig Racing, which is interesting because last week we were told that there was a strong possibility that Grant Enfinger would be the veteran driver of the group. And I can't help but wonder if Grant's name with Ram is no longer a possibility now that Justin's there. Now, they did say, Ty said that a fourth truck will be announced sometime in November. Guess what, people? It's November as of Saturday morning. um, so it could be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, who knows? I fully expect that truck to be Christian Eckes based off of what we've been told. If it's not, then I think there's some questionings happening, and I think that maybe since it was you that brought up the theory earlier to me in the chat, you have a different theory for what might work for Christian Eckes in 2026 or where he might be, and I have one I'll piggyback off of. But why don't you take the lead on this one?
Yeah, thank you. I feel like, we felt for a while that, okay, Butterbean was a given, and we really felt like once we got the feeling that the Xfinity program was shutting down, and we've kind of been on this now for pushing a month, that Daniel Dye and Christian Eckes would both come down to the trucks. They'd be the anchor drivers with Bean, and that made a lot of sense to me. But obviously, this Haley announcement kind of threw a bit of a curveball to that. And, I was just sitting here thinking, like, listen, we have not heard a name announced for the 10 car on the Cup program. And yes, we think it's Ty Dillon. We're close. We're working on it. We're just putting, dotting our I's, crossing our T's. It's almost there. It's almost there. It's the typical Chris Rice spiel. He's done this for years. It seemed like, okay, Ty Dillon is going to be that driver, but as the season's gone on and that deal hasn't gotten done, my curiosity's been more and more piqued that maybe he's not going to be back in the car next year, and his performance has dwindled significantly these last few months. So, I feel like there is a real chance here that when Justin Haley came on the market, that the Kaulig made a decision to pivot a little bit. And the reason Christian Eckes wasn't announced today as a truck driver is I think he has a legitimate shot to be named the driver of the 10 car in the Cup program. Because listening to Chris Rice this morning, actually I think it was Ty Norris that said this, that they were a couple weeks away from announcing the fourth truck driver, right? Like they were still trying to finalize a handful of things. Like, to me, if you were going to put Christian Eckes as a truck, and again, it makes sense that you would have that buttoned up by now, that he's under contract with Kaulig. He was in the Xfinity program. He's your A prospect. Like I feel like they would know exactly what they were going to be doing with him. And hearing them say that, yeah, we know who it is, but we're still working things out. We're trying to get everything put together. Kind of pivoted me away a little bit from him being that fourth truck driver. And in my eyes, knowing that we're no longer aligned with RCR in any capacity, that they are a ghost Chevy program. To me, there's no alliance with RCR. There's no alliance with Ty Dillon. There's no reason to put him in there unless he comes with a lot of funding. And I feel like we've heard over the last couple of weeks and months that they don't quite have that same level of funding as they did this year. And if they don't have enough to put him in the car, I would 100% put our prospect Christian Eckes in that 10 car and give him the opportunity to learn. Right? We know next year is probably going to be a struggle without that Chevy backing, and they didn't have a ton to begin with, but support is support. I wouldn't call it a throwaway season, but it's certainly an opportunity to help him build a notebook for when Dodge is ready to come into the Cup Series in 2027. If Eckes is the guy, it makes sense to just get a jump on it and make that leap. And unless they can find some significant funding that makes sense to put Ty Dillon back in the car, Christian Eckes is, to me, the heir apparent to that ride.
So I'm going to skip ahead briefly here in order to answer this question. Tori says, are they putting these drivers on the back burner for if and when Dodge comes into the series? So let's clear that part up right now. There is no if. I know Bob Pockrass, when he talks about it, it's if. When a few of the others, it's if. There's no if. It's happening. Not 80%, 90%. It's 110% happening. If you heard the interviews with Chris Rice this morning or Ty Norris in the afternoon, it's happening. It's locked, done, delivered, probably still needs to be signed, but it's happening. The team is preparing for that to happen. Both made it very clear that's the direction of the organization. in both interviews today. At least I thought. I don't know what you think about that, Ryan. Obviously, they can't come out and say it's officially happening, but they said as close to that as you will ever get in both interviews today from two different people. Um, so it's definitely happening. You're going to see Kaulig with Dodge in the Cup Series. I'm sure they're all desperately hoping for 2027, but at latest by 2028. For the team's sake, I hope it's 2027, but it just depends. It depends how fast these things move. Um, and yeah, so quick thought on that. Did you get the same
Yeah,
feeling I did
I
from that?
I did, because I mean, again, we are 2 months plus out now since the announcement of them going to Dodge, and every time they've spoke, they've been very careful with their words. How they were saying, "We still love Chevy. We're working with Chevy. We're a Chevy supported team." Right? They are very careful with that, but they've always been, "Yeah, we're working with Ram. They are our partners. We're building towards the future, etc., etc." And it just feels like every interview, every week since then, it's been a little bit more comfortable. They haven't used their words quite as protectively in support of Chevy. And today they didn't speak a single word of Chevy, with one really quick exception on Rudy Fugel and William Byron, and Chris Rice made some very weird, they know what they mean to us, reference about that duo. So there's something there that I haven't quite pinpointed yet. But besides that,
Oh, it's the Ty Dillon thing. Ty
but why
Dillon
would
almost
Rudy
killed their
Fugel?
whole.
Oh, it's true. That's a good point. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
Ty Dillon almost eliminated them from the playoffs.
That's a good point. You know what? Hey, news moves so fast. I forgot that even happened. Um, so that's a good point. That is what that probably meant. But you know what? Outside of that, there was no reference to Chevy in any capacity. They weren't really hiding it today, in my eyes. They are fully. As soon as this weekend at Phoenix wraps up, sure, they're still going to drive Chevys next year. They're going to be driving those ghost cars, but like this, in my eyes, is they are full steam ahead with Dodge from this point forward, and everything they do from this point forward is a build up to their eventual move to the Cup Series.
Ty Norris used the term. There's a roadmap to the long term future of the organization, and while mentioning Ram, and they have the same outlook as they do, and yeah, so it's happening. That's a given. On the Christian Eckes front, let me just start off by saying this. Obviously, when you're going to go from the Xfinity Series to the Truck Series, uh, despite having term left on your contract, he originally had 1 year left. You probably legally need a new contract. And Chris Rice, while speaking about Christian Eckes a couple months ago, mentioned how he had multiple years left. And we had done the research. We went back and listened to how long the original deal was for, and it was 2 years. So next year would have been the last year. So we had drawn the conclusion that uh, he had signed a new deal. Why? We weren't sure, but that they'd restructured a deal. And now with the Ram stuff, I think it made a lot of sense. Look, the Ty Dillon extension, and these two kind of play into one another. Um, the Ty Dillon extension was supposed to be done like 3.5 months ago, man. And then it was supposed to be done a month and a half ago. And like we spoke with someone connected to the team today, who should be able to tell us if Ty Dillon is that should be able to tell us if Ty Dillon was staying with the team, and they couldn't definitively say yes. So my theory is this, man. Sorry, we got a situation over here. I'm trying to work through it. My theory is this: what if this Ram show, which we'll talk about briefly here, is I still have a hard time. Again, it's not a bunch of nobodies. They're not picking just like iRacing drivers or the guy that lives down the street from you to go compete for a truck series drive a ride. These are going to be professional race car drivers from ARCA, from um,
Cars Tour, yeah,
yes, Cars Tour is the other one. I'm sure the
late model, yeah, the late model, super late models.
yeah, there'll be drivers from that those territories that will be a part of this thing if that's in fact what's happening. And it certainly sounds like that's what's happening, and I'll get your thoughts on that in a second. But and again, I don't know how this works because again, you're running a Chevrolet in Cup and a Ram in the Truck Series. So can they theoretically do? Can someone do both without ruffling feathers? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I would say it's a lot more believable if the Ram show is for like someone to make 10 or 12 starts in a fifth truck than a full season. Especially when you have Ty Norris coming out there and saying, look, we have full funding. We don't need to go get people with funding. It doesn't need to be a a circus shit show, if you will. I wonder if Christian Eckes could be part-time in the 10 and also part-time in the truck series. And the reason why I wonder that is if Ty Dillon only has so much sponsor support and he has, let's say, I don't know, for argument's sake, 12 races open that are not covered, 12, 14, 15, whatever it might be, that Kaulig would have to cover through, Leaf Filter, Action Industry, stuff like that. You really going to cover that for Ty? Or are you going to put Christian in the car for those races? The car is not going to compete for a championship. And why not? I think there's a real, I know we've talked about it briefly a couple weeks back, man, but I think there's a real possibility that 10 car might be split.
Yeah, I didn't give a lot of credence to that initially because we saw the last couple years how that went. Obviously, not great. The look that Kaulig, it wasn't well received within the industry. It was kind of a black smear for the team. I mean, at the end of the day, it was business, but it was one of those things that I felt like they wouldn't want to do it again, and I still feel like they probably wouldn't want to do it again. But that being said, from the contacts that we have and who we've spoken to at length, that we know for sure that Ty Dillon has support. He is well liked within the industry. He's well liked within the organization, from everything I've gathered. But it does not seem like he has a full complement of races sold.
He's also a victim of circumstance
of
what's gone on and the changes they made.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like I would say that throughout his whole career, he's kind of drawn the short straw on numerous occasions. And then you got a kid. I won't call him a kid. He's a young adult at this point. Christian Eckes, who's waiting in the wings, kind of in the same boat. Truthfully, like it seems like he's had. He doesn't bring his own funding. He's always been reliant on his talent, which we appreciate. But he's also a bit of a victim of circumstance here with the fact that the Xfinity program has to shut down. And yes, it makes sense, right? We've talked about this for months. It makes sense for him to go to the truck program where he was lights out, dominant, best season statistically in history last year. But what if, again, we need to fill a role with those open seats in the Cup program? I think it's far more likely, and I would not like this. I want him running a full season. And I'm going to say this right now. I want him running a full season. But I think it's far more likely that he runs a partial Cup schedule only next year in an event that Ty Dillon can't get all of his inventory sold than him actually bouncing back and forth between the two. Because I don't think, we've had this conversation with a few different people. I don't think they're going to allow it. It's one or the other. And if they want to give Christian Eckes that exposure, like I was just talking about a few minutes ago, but not at a full season complement, there is a realistic chance that, that 10 car is a split ride, and Christian Eckes might only get 10, 12, 14 starts next year. I would not want that. But I think there's a possibility that that could be the direction. The fact that he was not announced today, because I really felt today's announcement, up until last week even, was going to be Daniel Dye and Christian Eckes as your 2 and 3 drivers announced for the truck program. The fact that he was not announced today, and I think you touched on this in our chat, Sean, so I'll let you kind of expand on your thoughts on this. It was very noticeable to me that the guys on the morning drive, Mike Bagley, Pete Pistone, I think Todd Gordon was filling in today, and then even the afternoon show with Ty Norris, they had numerous opportunities to ask about who was driving those trucks, and they all very specifically did not mention Christian Eckes' name. I feel like they were asked to not ask about Christian Eckes today. I could be wrong. I could be completely off on this, but they had opportunities to dig deeper and ask more poignant questions. They had opened the door, but then they didn't walk all the way through it. They just said they got a surface level answer out of both guys and then didn't push further. And I think there was a bit more to this Christian Eckes story than what's being led on. And I do feel like that was very intentional that they didn't push further on him specifically, because it's a big deal that the Xfinity program is shuttering down, right? My first question would have been, what's Christian Eckes doing next year? And nobody asked that question.
Oh, for sure. Dave Moody had every opportunity in the world with Ty Norris, and I thought he was going to ask it. And then he didn't. And like the Chris Rice interview this morning, I thought the first 10 minutes of it was really good. And then the next 10 minutes, they let him off the hook and didn't pressure anything. And you know what? Christian might even be okay. If he's going to be, I don't know how it looks. It's so weird. The manufacturer thing's weird, right? Can you have a guy run a Ghost Chevy and a Ram? We don't know the answer to that question. We truthfully don't. And it's possible that Ty Dillon is back in the 10 car full time next year. Also, by the way, Aflac on a Kaulig car this weekend. Didn't see that one coming. They are co-sponsoring Ty Dillon's car. So that's a new one. But I don't think they've been in the sports since Carl Edwards. If I'm
since Carl,
I don't think they went to anyone else after that, but I could be wrong. But yeah, like it's great. Like, here's the one thing I don't want to happen, and I'm going to be super critical about it. I'm pro Ram. I grew up in a Mopar or no car family. The wife and I literally just bought a Jeep Patriot, so like we're all in on Stellantis. But if you let Christian Eckes walk, and they didn't have to, but if they do, after the Chandler Smith shit, I don't care if there's positive directions for the team. I will go scorched earth on this organization. You cannot let a talent like that just, all right, see ya, I'm going to X or whatever. Can't happen. Absolutely not. You let Chandler buy his way out. You don't let that happen with Christian Eckes at all. Nor do I think Christian can actually afford to do something like that.
I was going to say, just super quickly, let's chime in real quick on Chandler Smith's career trajectory at the moment, because he is now stuck at Front Row Motorsports, Front Row. Good program, but he's now kind of in truck purgatory and no real prospects of going Cup racing. So I think that should be a warning shot.
Unless he finds someone like I think Chandler. For the record, I think Chandler Smith is a Cup talented driver. I 100% believe that. But his funding is not where it was a couple of years ago. Nowhere close.
No, they burned all their money trying to prove a Joe. And hey, he performed well in Joe Gibbs. I will give him his flowers. Talent is clearly there, but he's also now burned a handful of bridges. And as you just touched on, his funding is kind of not there. So you got to be very careful about these things. And I don't see Christian Eckes buying his way out. I don't think he wants to buy his way out, but he could be a victim of circumstance. And listen, I still look at it from a perspective of, even if he's offered only a part-time ride next year, and again, this is worst case scenario here. If that was the best offer Kaulig could provide him, I don't see a world where he still wouldn't accept it because it is still the opportunity to potentially go cup racing. I still think that opportunity is there, even with Butterbean coming into the fold. And I think, he has a legitimate shot to prove his worthiness over the next handful of years. But he's raw, Butterbean. He's 3 years at best away. Where I think Christian Eckes is a year away. He's more primed and ready to make that jump sooner than Butterbean. So if I'm him and I'm sitting in the seat, that 10 car is still calling my name. I'm going to do everything I can to align myself to get that ride, even if it does mean potentially not running full time next year, which I do not see happening. And that's a worst case. But I don't think it's something we can dismiss either as a possibility.
Yeah, we'll have to. Sorry, one second. Are you sure?
Yeah, she's all.
Okay. Tori points out in the chat about Carson Quapple, full season, different cars. We could see something weird like that where if he can't be in a Ram and a Cup car and he's going to make some Cup starts, that he runs with a different Chevrolet organization in the Xfinity Series for a select amount of races next season. I wouldn't rule that out. I think that it's such a weird situation, man. But you cannot let him walk. In some way, shape, or form, Christian Eckes needs to be in a Kaulig vehicle next season. That's simple.
I wholeheartedly agree. Must happen.
The thing that made me go, huh, and I don't know if you caught it in the Ty Norris interview, is Dave Moody was asking, so are some of the Xfinity sponsor partners that you have going to be just transferring down to the Truck Series? And he said, Ty said, there's definitely interest there, and we want to retain our partners, but there's a really strong chance that the partners that were there with Xfinity will remain with. He said the partners in Xfinity have interest in going Cup racing too, and he could see them being added to the Cup program. Some of those sponsors, and that he expected the sponsors to stay with the drivers. And all I thought to myself was, well, the 16's occupied for the next several years. So are you telling me Ty Dillon's going to take some of those Xfinity sponsors? That doesn't really make a lot of sense. That made me go, oh, maybe Eckes is a real possibility there. Like, if you have the Series XM app, people, I strongly suggest you go listen to both interviews. It'll be about 35, 40 minutes of your time, but you can get some great insight on where some of this is heading, and I'll go one step further. I don't want to. You guys can play the guessing game, and Ryan can yell at me after the show if I've gone too far. But I can tell you this: we spoke with Ty Dillon has 3 or 4 different sponsors in the Cup Series. We spoke with one that is definitely back on the 10 next season for a select amount of races. Can't say how many. We do know how many. We can't say it. But not even the people in charge of that business that's sponsoring the car could say for certain that Ty Dillon is back in the car. They thought it was likely, but they could not guarantee it. And to me, that says something, considering where the conversation was a month ago.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a big open question. And it's we've been saying for a while that they want to re-sign Ty, and from a continuity standpoint, it makes a ton of sense. There's not a lot of open rides, there's not a lot of available drivers. The two available drivers, Daniel Suarez is now at the 7, and Justin Haley is now in our truck program. So unless you plan on bringing somebody up from the Xfinity series, there's nobody really available to take the 10 car. So,
Well, there's Corey
when you
Heim, but I
dot
don't think they're going to make a move that big. I don't think Corey Heim wants to
yeah,
leave the pipeline.
he's not even on my radar. He is tried and true Toyota, no matter how screwed he is. Because, by the way, talk about raw deals. He is on the wrong end of multiple raw deals that, he's not going to be full time in any series next year. And he's one of the most talented dudes to come through the system in quite some time. If they went and signed Corey Heim, man, I would eat this hat right here on this show. I'd slap some peanut butter on it, and I will start on, dude. That
some
would be a
ratings.
game changer if they did, right? Like, that's a game changer if you pull that off. Like, that would be incredible. I'm not expecting that. So yeah, outside of Corey Heim, who seems to be in limbo, who's there? Corey LaJoy? Nah, he's burned his bridges.
You know the weird thing about Heim? Not that I want to go on a big tangent about this, but like Danny Hamlin said, hey, Riley Herbst isn't going anywhere. And I get why. He provides a shit ton of funding. Well, neither is Bubba Wallace or Tyler Reddick, especially with the way the court case seems to be heading. And unless Joe Gibbs has a change of heart, it doesn't seem like Corey Heim is destined to run a Joe Gibbs car due to personal
legacy or
reasons.
bust.
So that leaves Legacy Motor Club, who, correct me if I'm wrong, they do not have an alliance with Joe Gibbs, but they did move up the tier with Toyota and TRD. If I believe that's
That
how
is
it
correct.
worked.
They have Toyota support, not Joe Gibbs support. That is correct.
So, that's the one team where I go, you could get in there. How patient does this guy want to
be? And they do have a third charter, mind you.
Oh,
they did buy they purchased that. Now they're leasing it. That's why they're not going to 3 cars next year. They are leasing that charter, but they do now. Legacy does have a third charter now, so I would say 2027 they will be a 3-car team. And if it's not Corey Heim in that seat, I would be mind blown.
Well, he deserves the ride. Clearly, I mean, he's earned it. So I keep forgetting about that because there's so much just charter influx that it's hard to keep up with, quite frankly. But anyway, sorry, hang on. I want to get to Tori's question here. I'm having a. Can you read that, Ryan? I'm on my phone right now, and I'm having a terrible time reading.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, could a team bring in a good talent with little sponsors while also bringing in lesser talent with massive sponsorship and broker up a 2-car sponsor situation?
That's up to the sponsor.
Yeah, you could. We've seen it. We've seen, Fastenal as a good example, sponsoring multiple Roush Fenway cars. They did 3 in one race at one point, like not out of the realm, but it's all relationship based. And if you don't, and while I think you're more likely to see it in a situation with Kroger, where they kind of sublease their sponsorship space to, all these various companies, you might be more inclined to get a situation that way, but there aren't many of those floating around.
Sorry, I'm watching the World Series game as we play here. Are you telling me a ball that bounces in the dirt first and then hits the batter is still hit by batter? I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, doesn't happen often, but as long as you don't swing the bat and it's in play, it's a hit batter.
Interesting. Well, let's hope they now don't go in homer. Anyways, yeah, it depends on the situation, sponsor, what they're willing to do. We'll say this too. I got to be careful. I don't want to betray any trust or break anything. I don't think we've done that yet, but the sponsor that we know that is going to be back on the 10 next year clearly signed a deal with Kaulig prior to Ty signing an extension, because that hasn't happened yet, which is interesting. But we'll see how it all plays out. I don't know how it all is going to play out at this point in time. I just know Eck is better not be gone for free. The other, I guess, the last point on the Ram side of things is we'd heard a few weeks ago that the show might not happen because running out of time. And I'm not gonna lie, it's basically November, man. It's really hard to do something that has no reported TV deal at the moment, expect it to air and get the results, prior to February, right? Like, you're really running out of time. And yet, when you listen to both interviews, it certainly sounds like that TV show is happening or something like it. Is that not the idea you got? Because I definitely got that idea.
Yeah, I think Chris was a little bit more coy about it by saying, but I think his giveaway. You brought up a good point about South Boston. It would make sense. It's a short track. Obviously, that's family ran and owned by the Rice family. It would make sense for them to do it there. But he also said he was flying out to LA this week. And to me, the only reason he would fly out to LA is to talk to some TV executives. And then, Ty Norris came in and said,
100%. That's where all that takes place.
Yeah. And then Ty Norris is like, yeah, we're going to announce our fourth driver in November, but the fifth driver, December, January, that's about the best we can do. Okay. They're doing something. Now it can't be big. Like, I'm thinking 8 drivers tops in some sort of situation where they're going to do some sort of elimination style competition. Now, I
think it'll be a streaming service too. I don't think it'll be cable TV with the lack of time.
Yeah, and I'll say this as well. NASCAR in particular, they just recently opened up a multi-billion-dollar media center. They've been producing some insanely good videos all year long in terms of like advertising. They put together this kind of out of the blue mini series where they were following a handful of drivers like Carson Hocevar and 3 or 4 other drivers. Like, that just premiered kind of out of nowhere over the weekend. Like, NASCAR's production side has really stepped up their game in the last handful of years. And there's, in my eyes, no question that this is going to be some level of NASCAR production, using their equipment, using their studios. And I'm guessing it's going to be live stream. Well, maybe not live stream, but it's going to be broadcast on the NASCAR channel, which not many people know exists, but there is a NASCAR channel out there. And it's probably going to happen in December. And however that shakes out will be the fifth driver of the Ram truck program.
I don't. I'll tell you where I think it's going to air if this is actually a thing. I think it's going to be on Amazon in Prime. They have a ton of interest in doing more NASCAR, but there's no open races at the moment. They already do something similar like this with the NHL and I think the NBA. The NHL has something with them each and every year like this. I thought, honestly, if you take all the networks broadcasts this year across NASCAR, I thought Amazon was far and away above everybody else.
Without question, miles better.
And if they have an opportunity to get in on this and have a say on how it goes down, I think they'd be interested for sure.
So I agree with that. I still feel like the NASCAR production will probably do the dirty work, but
yeah, for sure.
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, that's a good point. Amazon could easily get their hands on it because you're right. I'm a big basketball fan. Netflix does it. It's called The Starting Five. It just came out. They've chronicled 5 players from last year. The PGA has a version of this, so it's definitely a real thing, and it's an easy way to get introduced to the general public through the streaming platforms. Like, it makes sense, and if they take it seriously, which seems like they are, they could really use that as a marketing vehicle and still end up with a relatively talented driver in that fifth truck. Like, because again, you're right. They're not pulling you and me off the streets to drive one of these things. Like the whoever they get to do this is going to have some level of resume. So I'm not super confident, but at the same token, I don't think it's going to be a disaster either.
I'm wondering what they're going to drive because the Rams aren't ready yet. They've stated that. So is there a deal where, you're just going to see them out there in Chevy trucks, the Spire trucks, and the Chevy logos are removed, and the other manufacturers have said, "Hey, look, we will help a new manufacturer get in here for sure." Is that a possibility? I would think, like, I don't know.
Hey,
I
they
don't
said they
know
had
how this
7
works.
chassis ready in their building.
Yeah, so they did say no fenders hung though, no fenders or noses. They're still waiting on that stuff. So, um, we'll see what happens. But there's clearly a lot going on. Um, I still don't know how I feel about the show thing, but if someone good comes out of it, then great. I'm more curious about that fourth truck because when you call Justin Haley the veteran of the team, which were Ty Norris's exact
And
words,
they used it
I
twice. It wasn't a
yep,
coincidence.
I don't think Enfinger is a possibility there anymore.
It certainly changes. It changes the trajectory. And again, I think the two names that our source said they weren't 100% sure on, though they were confident, was Tony Breidinger and Grant Enfinger. So we'll see. It sounds like if this show happens, maybe Tony's part of the show. Who knows? But that could be something that's null and void. And it sounds like, as you said, Justin Haley as the veteran, and again, was not a mistake, referenced 2 different times by Ty Norris. Listen, Grant Enfinger is a driver I really, really like. He should have won the championship 3 years ago. He's a perennial contender. He wins races. He's also 41 years old. He is not a young man, and he would 100% be considered the veteran of the organization if he was on the team. And if they're giving that title to Haley, who in his own right, by the way, is 26 years old, um, that means there's going to be a lot of young drivers driving those trucks.
It's crazy that he's only 26, 27 years old. That's nuts thinking about it. Lets you know how early he started. I don't think he's getting enough respect. I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, these trucks aren't going to be very good. There's no reason why these trucks shouldn't be good other than lack of setup information, to be honest. Um, which, by the way, they could go out and purchase certain setup information from other teams as well.
I mean, they're
Um,
basically buying Spire equipment. Those Spire trucks have wins this year. They're
oh,
not the
and you
best
can bet some
trucks,
of that crew
but
and some of those crew chiefs are going to be on some of those Kaulig trucks.
100%. Those are going to be some baseline setups. I mean, those trucks aren't the best, but they're not bad. It's a good starting point. I fully believe with Rams factory support throwing millions of dollars at this, that it's not going to take long for them. And they also talked about building simulators, right? That's something Chris Rice touched on
Yeah,
today as
two.
well.
We're talking like two big. We're not talking iRacing sims. We're talking two massive sims.
Yeah. So the fact they're building these sims, right, once they're up and operational, it's not going to take them long to find speed, I don't think.
No, I agree. And on that point, I forgot to bring it up earlier. Is there's been people suggesting that Colleague's just gonna store their Xfinity stuff aside, but that's not the case. I think Ty Norris made it very clear those cars have been sold, but he would not say who to. He said you will still see someone else racing those cars next season, and speculation has been Spire before, and then um, all of a sudden there's 2311 speculation in the Xfinity series, and that they may have bought some, which is interesting. So we'll see how that plays out. But the one thing I feel like I can guarantee is no, they're not just storing a bunch of Xfinity cars somewhere and waiting to repurpose them into Dodges in a couple of years. Um, they've sold that operation as it currently stands.
No doubt. No doubt. And listen, this circles back. We listen to every word Chris Wright says, probably too much so. But this, he said this 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago. He was very explicit when he said, we've got, well, and I'm going to say 64 chassis. That might not be the right number, but he was very poignant to be very specific about how many Xfinity chassis they have. That to me was the, come to give me a call. We got some things to sell. They sold them. They're going to turn a small little profit and probably turn that. Yeah, and again, I think it was Dave Moody, basically saying, "Did you guys just have an equipment swap? Spire trucks in one, Kaulig cars going the other direction." At the end of the day, that's probably what happened, or something very close to it.
All right, let's shift gears here with some rapid fire to end this. Let's talk about SVG here for a few. Man, there is I just put out a video today, which is not doing well, unfortunately, due to the YouTube algorithm and certain things you have to do during the editing process. And editing right now is very hard to find time for, which is why we're live right now. And in it, I talk about the end of the season, and you look at how he's done on his last 3 or 4 oval races. The dude has hit another level. He really has. His Martinsville performance, incredibly impressive. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go out and contend for NASCAR Cup Series championships. I'm just not. Sorry, guys and gals out there. We're not at that point. And we don't even know what point structure we're looking at next year. I sure as hell hope it's not a full season. I don't think that benefits your ratings at all. And I don't think it benefits sponsors at all who have incentive to sponsor playoff cars for more TV airtime during that time. But that's a story for another day. I just think he's hit another level, man. On the ovals, he's figured something out. And he's gone from, hey, I'm a top 25 guy. Excuse me. But, it's, he's been top 15 consistently on these ovals. Now, has he gotten the finishes? No, he got wrecked a couple of times, I believe. But yeah, just I could not be more impressed with what he's doing to end this year, heading into next year. And as I said in the video, I'm sure a lot of people would have appreciated that at the beginning of the playoffs. We might be having a different conversation right now. But hey, I think there's levels to this, and I do think he's hit another level.
Also, it just goes to show you the pressure-packed aspect of the playoffs, right? Like, he was running pretty good on ovals a couple weeks prior to the playoffs, and the playoffs start, the first couple weeks really struggled, gets eliminated, and then yeah, you're right. Ever since, he's been running pretty consistently top 15, top 20 on the ovals, and showing good speed, like legitimately running, qualifying pretty good, qualifying top 20, running top 20 most of the week. He's even inch close to running top 10 at some of these tracks. Like it's been impressive. And, and we know Daniel Suarez is a lame duck driver, but, Daniel has struggled immensely. Ross is Ross. He finds ways to get good finishes, but he hasn't exactly been running superbly these same few races. He's been kind of consistently running right around where SVG is running, and in some cases behind SVG the last couple of weeks. Like, he's taken the mantle as being right there with Ross, if not a bit better over the last month. And that to me is a huge positive step in the right direction. I will say this, this is the part where I want to just be careful, because I have felt the same way about AJ in years past. I feel like they maybe start working on next year's setups a little bit. They're running a little bit different things. AJ has had some really strong performances the last 5-6 races of a season over the last 5-6 years, and it just doesn't translate into the next season. So I think, while the championship teams are really hyper focusing on their championship, I also think some of these other teams are starting to spool up what they want to do for next season, and it doesn't fully guarantee that success is going to translate as teams kind of experiment a bit. But that aside, the the progress is 100% noticeable. I mean, he was barely running 30th to start the season. And that's being pretty nice, to be honest. I mean, he was struggling to run 30th or better. And to make that leap and kind of skip the 20s, I feel like he just skipped the 20s for the most part. He went from the 30s to the high teens to now running pretty consistently top 15. That is a massive leap, in which I didn't think he would make that big of a jump. So if he can carry that momentum in the next year, and even if he only runs consistently top 20 on average on aggregate, he's going to be a real competitor, and have a real chance to perform come playoff time. Because I don't think anybody's touching him on those road courses. He's going to still build up those points. Now, are they running a 10 race chase? Are they going to a full 36 race season? Like, that's the part we don't know. They haven't fully announced it. I feel like he has a better chance if they keep the playoff format, which would be 3-3-4, versus a 10 race chase or a 36 race playoff or regular season. But no matter what the metric is next year, I am very confident that we're going to see a significantly better Shane Van Gisbergen, and he is going to maybe become the face of that program. Obviously we know Ross is good, but if he can continue that step forward, I see no reason why he can't be the best driver on that team going forward.
Yeah, I got to reiterate, I cannot state enough how not desirable a 36 race thing is. It's so out of date, and what kills me about that, I know F1 still does their thing, but I don't know if that's a good comparable considering the way F1 teams police the way they run races. Don't get me wrong, I love watching Formula One. I love the tracks. I love the cars. I love the scenery. I don't love the pull over and let your teammate win bullshit, which happens way too frequently in that sport. But I will say this: I think that I've seen a stat that a lot of people voting on Twitter are voting for the 36 race thing, but like, how many of those are people in their late 20s or 30s, etc. Something is happening. I think someone just got destroyed at the World Series behind the fence with a ball. There's medical attention happening. My apologies. But yeah, like you need a playoff system. I hate when people go, for example, and Mark Martin's popular for this one too. And someone else just put this out there. Was it wasn't Danny Hamlin? Maybe it was. I don't think. Someone said, and I quote, if Corey Heim and Connor Zilish don't win the championships this weekend, it's a joke. So does that mean that when a team finishes first in the NFL or the NHL or the NBA or the MLB, they should be awarded the championship? They can't be upset in the finals by someone? It's ass backwards logic when they compare it to other sports, but then don't flip the comparison for the other sport. It, I don't get it.
I think for me, it's the one race championship format. It's the part I don't like. And I think that's the big concern is, if it's a 3-3-4 system, right? 16 teams, 3-3-4 race championship with probably four, maybe six teams, right? That at least gives you an aggregate on, hey, you're not going to be eliminated if you blow an engine or if you get wiped out because Riley Herbst sneezed behind the wheel while taking a Sunday drive. There are variables in NASCAR where one race playoff can really decimate a contender. If you do like a series, like you're literally watching the World Series as we do this, right? 7-game series. You're going to find out over the best of 7 who can win it 4 times. I think if you give me a 4-race championship round, I will get that same feeling that over the course of a handful of games, the best driver would step up, perform the best, and prove over a reasonable period of time that they're worthy of a championship. I don't like the 1-race final. I could definitely get behind a 10-race playoff or chase like they originally did. But, let's circle back to Jimmy Johnson winning 5 in a row in the early mid O's, which is the reason we went to a playoff format. Because everybody and their mama bitched about Jimmy Johnson winning 5 consecutive championships and how horrible it was. Well, I sit here now and say, man, I miss that system because that's even more of a sample size. You give me 10 races, no resets. You go out there, you win, you earn points, you get your bonus points, you do all those things. And after 10 races, you got the most points, you're a champion. All right, I can get behind that. But that's still, to me, that's fine. But I agree. 36 race system is for the birds. It decentivizes racing hard. We saw a finish the other week. Not Talladega, it was the previous cutoff that we saw some insane racing. Like they were pushing really hard, and we got a 3-4 car tango at the end of that race, racing for a win. And I promise you, if we were running for 36 races or even a 10-race chase, we weren't going to get that level of intensity, knowing that if you won that race, you advanced to the next. I think it was Las Vegas, actually, where Hamlin ended up coming out on top. You simply won't get that level of aggression when there isn't a playoff format in place. To me, that's where the playoff format still excels. It creates incredible, intense moments. But the 1-race winner take all championship to me is too much of a roll of the dice. And I'm happy that's going away.
I like the 3-3-4. Personally, I wish it was 4-3-3. That's just me. I think 4 at the end is almost too much. But I think even with 3-3-4, I think the caveat was they would go for the 4 races. It wouldn't be 4 drivers; it'd be 6 drivers, which I'm fine with. And I think even with a 4-race thing at the end with 6 guys competing, I'm gonna bet that there's still 3 of those guys that would have a shot. I mean, it all depends on how the other races turn out, right? And who gets involved in wrecks, equipment failure, etc. But I think 3 of those guys would still realistically have a shot at winning the championship come the finale. Potentially more, but realistically 3 would be what I would think. I just don't want the 36 race season, man. There's no one that will ever convince me that it's good for the sport, that it's good for sponsors. No one ever talks about the sponsor side of this. What do you think sponsors want to see? They're fucking ads primarily, featured in the playoffs because they sponsor a playoff driver. It's incentive to sponsor a team because there's someone that normally makes the playoffs, or do you think they want to be on the 13th place car in points, who's 300 points out with 7 races to go and is going to get no TV time? Just
I don't disagree, but the flip side of that is once you're eliminated from the playoffs, nobody cares about you. AJ finished 3rd at Darlington. He didn't get a post-race interview. I want to say Alex Bowman finished 2nd a couple weeks ago. Didn't get an interview. Right? If you're not in the playoffs, they don't give a flying fuck about you. Bubba Wallace had an incredible first round. Got a lot of TV time. McDonald's was thrilled. He didn't do so well in the round of 12. Got eliminated. He had a top 5 finish the other week. Didn't get interviewed. He barely got any TV time. Right? So I think the flip side
Bubba
of that
might not have gotten eliminated if it wasn't for his team owner.
Yeah, he would have. I mean, he could have won that race. That's true, but still, that's besides the point. Though once you're eliminated, they don't give you a penny of time, so it goes both ways.
You have to win the race essentially.
Yeah, you have to win the race essentially, and that's, as we've seen, very hard to do.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, man. Let's close up shop here. Prediction time. Next episode, we'll get into some of the court stuff as it becomes clear, and I think more of it will become clear here in the coming days. Um, Hopefully, we'll be back. Yeah, we'll definitely be back with an episode next week because we're gonna have to talk about who won the championships, etc. And I'm sure there'll be more Kaulig stuff to talk about and SVG stuff, etc. Um, who are you going with? Let's start with the Truck Series. You go first, I'll go second, and then I'll go first for Xfinity.
Sure. Truck Series to me is going to be the easiest one of them all. Corey Heim time. He gets his 12th win of the season, racks up his championship, locks it in. Best driver in the business in the Truck Series, unless he gets wrecked or has a mechanical failure. I don't think anybody's going to get anywhere close to him. It's going to be Corey Heim.
I forgot it was Kevin Harvick that made those comments, by the way, about if it's not Heim or Zilish, it's basically a joke. Oh no, off the bat it looked like that might have been gone. I think it was off the end of the bat. Anyways, I'm gonna piss Kevin Harvick off if he ever listens to this, which is a highly unlikely. Um, I'm going upset. I'm going Lane Riggs. Too much that can happen in a race with the guy who's the favorite. When you just mentioned it, the one race playoff showdown, it just takes a little bit for something to happen. I'm going Lane Riggs.
Well, I hate to break it to you, Sean. Lane Riggs didn't make the Final Four.
Not even in it. Was he the one that was down to the fucking
He
the
tied with
tiebreaker shit that happened?
Cade. Yep, he tied with Honeycutt. So here's your problem, right? Here it is. Lane Riggs, second best driver in the series, won 5 races. Amazing. He had an incredible season. He's not even going to finish top 4 in points.
Now,
He's
correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he technically finish with one more point, but it didn't count because it was a fastest lap?
No, he got the fastest lap. That's the only reason it was tied in the first place.
But and because it was the fastest lap, it didn't work for the tiebreaker.
No, that fastest lap is what allowed him to be tied. Without it, he wouldn't have been tied. He would have been -1. So the fastest lap.
That's what I'm saying, though. Why didn't he win the tiebreaker then if he won 5 races?
Highest finish in the round, which is also a shit metric.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So you got 3 races. The best finish
of
in
all
that
things to
round.
bitch about changing, maybe let's change some of that crap.
Yeah. So Caden Honeycutt, no wins. Lane Riggs, I'm going to say 4. I think 4 is the right answer for Lane. 4 wins. But he got eliminated because Caden Honeycutt had a better finish, the best finish in that specific round of the playoffs. That is a horrid way. So it's going to be Tyler Ankrum, who won 1 race. Caden Honeycutt, who won no races. Oh my God. He won the championship last year. What's his name? My God. He drives for... Why is my face? I can't even think of his name. He won the Truck Series championship last year. And then Corey Heim.
So we got Honeycutt. We got Heim.
I'm going to
get who's the other name you mentioned?
Tyler Ankrum, which I guarantee you nobody's heard of.
Yeah.
And Ty Majeski.
He's a McNally guy, right? And Majeski.
Yes. Tyler Ankrum is a McAnally.
Yeah, well, then I guess I got to go Heim. I thought Riggs would give Heim a shot at it, but the others not so much without problem. So
yeah, Ty Majeski won the race last year. He is certainly a threat. Ooh. He's great on short tracks. So,
alrighty then. And on the Xfinity side of things, I am not going Connor Zilisch. I'm going Justin Allgaier.
I also believe Justin Allgaier is going to win. I'm going with Justin Allgaier as well to go back to back. He's got the experience. He's done this 1,000 times. And Connor Zilisch did not run well at Phoenix in the spring. He finished 16th in the spring. Obviously, that was week 4 of the season. Connor Zilisch has gotten significantly better since then. I fully expect him to be competitive. But I think I'm going to say Justin Allgaier gets his 2nd consecutive championship on Saturday.
I guess we didn't make things interesting on that one, did we? All right, not like the truck one anyway, where we didn't even know who was in it. But Cup Series, man, who's winning that?
Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe is going to be a first-time champion. Joe Gibbs
I
Racing
thought
Equipment. He dominates Phoenix. He's won 2 races there in recent years. He is going to put on a clinic and clean house on Sunday. Chase Briscoe is a champion on Sunday.
for sure that you would be going Danny Hamlin, given
I
how much of a pro
love
Hamlin guy
Denny
you are.
Hamlin. I am rooting for Denny Hamlin. I'm going to be screaming from the top of a mountain if that man wins a championship. He deserves it. He's my favorite driver, not named AJ Allmendinger. I will be wearing my 11 flag on Sunday. I think Chase Briscoe's better at Phoenix.
I'm going William Byron. I know the Briscoe's great at Phoenix, and earlier this year we had the conversation. Well, Ford is going to win Phoenix, but that would require a Ford being in the championship four. So, yeah, I'm going to go with William Byron. I don't know how he gets it done. Briscoe's a damn good pick, and I'm the opposite of you. At the end of the day, I'll be cheering for any of the 3 but Hamlin. So, I would love to see Hamlin go down as the best NASCAR Cup Series driver to never win a championship. But at the same time, we know that his career. This changes all the time. People say someone's career is going to end. I know he said it, but I also wouldn't mind him winning it at his last shot, where like he's announced this is it, regardless of what happens, and then he wins it. That would be the definition of a storybook ending.
Tell you what, he's got a chance. I think the JGR cars are a little bit better than the Hendrick cars when it comes to Phoenix. I think
Ty Dillon's just going to wreck the other 3 guys or the 2 Toyota guys to make up for what happened.
Yeah, that's that. They put a little nitrous in Ty Dillon's car there to make that happen. So, you can't count out Kyle Larson. Like at the end of the day, he's already won at Phoenix. He did that.
I didn't know he was in it until an hour before the show.
Yeah. Kyle Larson, he's the one that got in on points. He cannot count him out. He's been really fast the last couple weeks. I think of the Hendrick cars, he's the best one. William Byron winning last week aside, I do think Larson's a bit better. I think Larson probably finishes second behind Briscoe. And I still think one of the Fords wins this race, but it doesn't matter. They're not in the championship 4.
I'm predicting some level of chaos. I don't know if it'll be at the end, but someone is going to get burnt by somebody else, and it'll be a talking point. I'm really curious to see how SVG does at Phoenix too, see if he continues his really strong run. I would love to see him end with a top 15 outside shot at a top 10 on the heels of what he's done the last few weeks. Would be, one hell of a big momentum builder heading into next season. And we all sit here and wonder what happens next season. Could SVG be in the market for a new crew chief? We know the guy who's the crew chief of the 1 will not be the crew chief of the 1 come next season, because I believe they're getting somebody from Hendrick Motorsports as the crew chief of the 1. I forget the fellow's name. So does that guy then move to the 87 or 67 or whatever the hell the number ends up being? Could he replace SVG's crew chief, which I know a lot of people have been lobbying for? Don't think it's going to happen when the guy wins 5 races, albeit road courses.
And the performance to end the year is telling a story too, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a relationship.
The 10 car could use him.
Yes, they could.
And I was pro Dickinson. I don't want to just count out what he did last year first half. Yeah, I don't think it is either. But anyways, that's going to do it for the show tonight. My phone is also at 4%, so Ryan and I won't be able to do an additional video. But I had fun. It was 80 minutes of fun, long overdue. Final thoughts, man.
Listen, it was kind of a slow period the last couple of weeks, but this is the end of the year, championship race weekend. I'm super excited about it, even though Phoenix isn't my favorite track. It's just what we live for as a racing NASCAR fan. This is it. This is for the Holy Grail. As I told you, I'm going to be wearing my Denny Hamlin hat. I am going to be legitimately nervous on Sunday. I'm going to really hope he wins. So I'm looking forward to this race, and I'm looking forward to getting back together next week to talk about A, how the championship races went, and B, what's new in the realm of Kaulig, because I firmly believe over the next 4 to 6 weeks we're going to be getting significant amounts of Kaulig news that's going to keep us busy all through the winter months. And as a content creator, as a fan of the sport, it's all you can ask for. So I'm very happy. This has been a great 80 minutes. I've really enjoyed tonight's video, and looking forward to the next one.
It has been a great 80 minutes, so we're going to give 5 more if my phone will last that long. NASCAR 25. I want to get my thoughts out on that. I know I briefly touched on it before. This is what I can tell people. I'll tell Ryan again this on air. Consoles are not going to get any cheaper, my friend. That's just not the direction of the industry. Actually, you know what's crazy is we were doing some research for our other channel and old video game stuff. It's crazy how expensive old video games were when I was younger. I remember like the PlayStation 1 era of a new video game comes out, it's $54.99 or $59.99. Canadian, that is. When Sega was out, it was like Genesis, that is, and Super Nintendo, you paid $90 for a new game. And then there was times American when VHS was really first coming out, people were paying $80 for a VHS. That's nuts. That's absolutely fucking insane. So anyone, I know our friend Alex is sponsored, by the way, big shout out to our channel sponsors, Lynn over at SVG Nation, Alex over at Dinger Nation. We know how much they love us and support us. But Alex is in the same situation as you. I will say this. When you're racing that, I can only speak for the online. I've not done any of the offline stuff. That's going to require a day without kids, and I have a couple hours to sit down and do it. But online wise, actually, even before that, the way the cars drive, let's start there, on the racetrack, is far and away the closest any NASCAR game has ever been to iRacing. And what I mean by that is, let's take a track like Michigan is not a good example because my kid could run that track on any version of any game. But I'm trying to think of some of the races I've done. So I just did one at
You talking about Kansas the other day?
Kansas, at St. Louis. I did one at St. Louis. Okay. On every other NASCAR game, period, ever made, even NASCAR 09, which in my opinion is the best online NASCAR game up until this one, in terms of options, still probably is the best. You come out of, when you're coming off of a turn, and you're gassing up, and if you're just using a controller or whatever, you can just in all those games, trigger down all the way, and you're just going like full throttle off the corners in all these games. That's just how it works. Now, if you raced iRacing, if you're leaving turn 3 or turn 4, you're not just full throttle immediately. It's a progression, so you're not spinning the tires off the corner. That is how this game is. If you think you're going to leave, any of the turns full throttle and just blast away, no, there's a level of tenderness, gingerness, if you will, whatever you want to call it, that you need to have with this game, or you're going to spin out all the time. And the road courses, we hear all the time with the new tire about there being no grip. There's no grip on road courses, man, in these games. I had a couple of terrible ones, and I finally did a Watkins Glen one. I think the race was like 15% or something like that. And I started 32nd, I believe, and finished 5th. And it wasn't because I was super fast. It was just because by this point I've gotten the hang of, hey, you can't just gas down leaving a turn. You got to slowly get into it. And it seemed like half the field didn't understand that. So racing wise, it feels like iRacing. If you've raced iRacing, you know that when you're doing it, the cars feel like they have no weight to them, especially like if someone gets into you. iRacing's always been that way. It's one of the reasons people say, look, iRacing's good for preparing, but at the end of the day, none of the cars feel like they weigh anything, which is the difference between iRacing and real racing. Very much the same in this game. When you get into a room full of good racers, you can have an excellent race that is miles and beyond better than anything we've gotten from any game, period, in my opinion. Uh, Lots of fun. I can't think of a negative in terms of how the cars handle. I can think of a negative on the idiots that race online and some of the people that just intentionally wreck, but um, I'm thoroughly impressed with how good they got the driving in the game, man.
Yeah, and I've also heard that they have a rating system similar to iRacing, which
They do, but it's
will
not as
hopefully
good as
weed it out.
iRacing. Yeah, it needs to be. It's too easy. You know how iRacing you got to grind a bit to go up?
Hard, it's very hard. Yes.
Dude, you have a couple of good races and you can skip 2 levels. It's too. They need to, and I know they're looking into it. They already said there they need to make it harder to advance levels. That way, if you're in a C room, um, you might get that crap, but once you get up to B or A or S, you should be running with guys that aren't going to completely fuck you over. So, pardon my language, but Dirty Death says he loves NASCAR 25. I don't know if you have any of the opinions I just shared there, man. But like I said, when you get a good room of people, um, it can be a lot of fun. I had a lot of good races at Vegas, had good races at Kansas, had some good races at Michigan too. Um, Martinsville was incredibly challenging because again, you can't just gas it out of the corner. You got to baby that out of the corner, and it's a lot of fun. My phone's at 1% though, so we got to go. We'll see you next time. Please like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all. Check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Kaulig Nation. And we will see each and every one of you in the next video. Enjoy championship weekend.